Jeffrey, you really need some jingle music.
That would be a great way to start the show, wouldn't it? Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ahead of the Curve. I'm your host, Jeffrey Platt, and I have my good friend and guest, David Perkins, on the show with me today. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I do think we need some jingle music, don't we?
Something kind of plucky and pithy.
I think I have to start making some money first. Then I can have like maybe a full orchestra or quartet or something going on.
Very good, very good. Well, thanks for having me on the show. You've had a wonderful list of guests, and if I'm half as good as them, then I think this will be a fun show.
I can't see how I wouldn't. So, David, I was just taking a look at the comments section really quickly, and I can already see Ruben popping up on the feed. Hello, Ruben. Welcome to the show. But David, would you mind giving us a little bit of a background about where you started, where you're from, and how
Sure.
you got into show business and pre-visualization and kind of within the realms that we are working in today?
Sure. Like many people, I got my start in high school theater. I was on stage as a freshman. First play was Bye Bye Birdie, and I was Randolph McAfee, so the little child. My voice hadn't quite changed yet, so I was perfect for the role, and so that was loads and loads of fun. But as you know, shows kept going on as a sophomore. I didn't get the role that I wanted. We were doing Once Upon a Mattress, and
Oh my
I
God, I
wanted
love that show. I
I
actually
wanted
PD'd
I
that show
wanted to be the
once.
jester because I could juggle. So I thought, oh well, if I could juggle, I'm a shoe in for this role. No, so they said, oh well, you can help out backstage. You can help hang lights and build the set. Boy, was that fun. So basically, the rest of my high school career, I was skipping school to go work backstage within the theater, and my parents are fully aware of this. They weren't exactly happy about it, but it was something that they realized I was going to do no matter what. I was going to skip school, and it was actually I only graduated because I took the GED and I was able to walk with my class as a result of passing the GED. So I clearly had a reason to do this kind of stuff. But I was also really interested in graphics and visual effects. I had a couple of hacker buddies that I went to school with, and they were always bringing me all this illegal software to play with, and I was like, guys, be careful with this. They're like, just make sure it opens, and so I'd open it up and play with 3D Studio Max and stuff like that, and I was like, wow, this is really really fun. So I started doing my own video editing and contract work for graphics and title sequences and stuff like that. And I really wanted to go to school for film. So ever since watching The Matrix was like the film that changed my entire outlook and perspective. John Gaeta was the visual effects supervisor, and what he did with the bullet time rig with the static cameras in
Yeah.
an arc, that just like, whoa, wait, this is a whole new can of worms that we're dealing with.
Man, that was
And,
totally revolutionary at the time. It
I
was,
mean, in a way, that is early, 3D scanning.
yeah.
Being able to capture a singular moment. So I kept varying back and forth between these two passions, and I had no idea that they would find a way to converge. And it basically it was me jumping into Maya, and one of the first subjects that I started playing with was this idea of making stages inside of Maya. So I actually brought with me today one of my very first renderings in Maya of a stage. Jeffrey, if you don't
So are
mind.
you sure? Are you sure you want me to show this?
I mean, it was 2000, 2001. All right, go for it.
So I just wanted to take a moment as well to say hi to Berto and Jim for watching the show, and for those who've been watching and following me along. David, I believe you're actually episode number 19 or 20 right now, which is
Berto was number one, yes?
and Berto was number one. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's been quite the journey so far.
So what you're looking at here is it was a dance recital that I did. In high school, there was a gentleman by the name of Steve Braun who worked as he's a film and grip extraordinaire in the Orlando area, and his daughter was a member of this dance crew, and what he basically let us do is he would rent all these fixtures from PRG, and he'd just drop it off in the theater and be like, all right, guys, have fun, do what you want to do with this stuff. And this was my first chance to play with moving fixtures. And, I think it was like IntelliBeams or Techno Beams at the time. But
man, those look like those look like old Mac 600s or Mac 500s.
Yeah, I think those are Mac 500 or 600. That sounds right. Their profiles, so yeah, 500 or something like that would probably be right. At some point, I was able to convince the dance company to let me be the designer, and so I started coming up with some stuff with that and presenting renderings. I had never heard of previs. I had never heard of any of this stuff, and I was like, well, I just want to show people what the design is. And we've got our spandex shapes, which were so popular in the early 2000s. There, I'm sure Jeffrey, you're no stranger to the use of stretch spandex.
I think I still have some pants made out of them.
I don't need to know that. No. So this was my very first rendering, and then I got a job with a company called Cybus, and we did a lot of student leadership stuff. And so this is when I started to really have fun with renders and getting reflections and all that. I think this was in 2005, 2006. We had a really great art director working for the company, and they would generate these graphics, and I was able to extract stuff out of it. Exactly.
Never enough.
Never enough. So I was able to start extracting some of this design stuff from his collateral that helped inform this design. And I really wanted to be a designer at that point in time. I wanted to be a production designer. And I had a lot of fun doing it, but it was one of those things where I started to take on more and more and more than I probably should have. Case in point, Jeffrey, you and I met on a project in 2009 for UCF.
Yes,
and this was my first encounter with Vista. And it was also my first encounter with previs. And just, long story short, if it weren't for previs on that show, the show would have been an absolute disaster.
So for those who are watching, let's talk about this for a second. This was in David's apartment here in Orlando, 2009.
That is correct. And it's also 1 floor up and 9 doors down from a woman.
Oh, I think we may have lost David. So give you guys a little insight, hopefully, while David gets back on here. Oh, there you are, David.
Yes.
Hey, we lost you just for a split second.
So sorry.
So you were mentioning that just a few floors down?
Yeah. I think it was 1 floor down, seven doors over was actually a woman who I met and eventually married at this exact building. So hi, honey, I love you. So we were doing this previs in 2009. This was my first experience with it. I had no idea what previs was. But this absolutely saved the show because I was so overextended with building the set and designing it and getting the rig hung, that I didn't save myself enough time to program. And
Yeah.
you ended up coming and saving the day by bringing me enough building blocks that were built in previs that we could actually do something with. And so this kind of gets at the heart of the matter of what previs is about to me, and how I think it helps people. I think that previs is the substitute for the rig during the times when you have to get your shit together. So imagine a ballerina working on a stage. Are they going to start choreographing the moment they arrive to the big stage and the entire company is there? No, you have to go through a whole process of practicing, rehearsing, and figuring out what you're going to do. The dance studio is that place for a dancer. You have a place to do that. And previs is that place for us to work in a vacuum, in a way that we can experiment with design, get a chance to see what things are going to look like in advance, and get our best ingredients and best foot forward. Because without that, we're starting from zero when we arrive on the show site. And so that's kind of been my passion, is bringing those tools to people.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Um, what would be the most important aspect of it, aspect of visualization for your events or for your installations?
Well, the number one thing, I believe, is trustworthiness. There's kind of two sides of the coin with previs, and at some point, I'd like to touch on some nomenclature that I'd like us to start thinking about as we progress into the future. But let's talk about previs as it's traditionally been used in a lighting fashion. If you're going to offer a tool for a lighting designer to sit at a console and program, they need to trust that what they're doing is going to be what's reflected in the rig. Now, in their head, they may know quality of light. If I use this kind of a color, it's going to sculpt and shape in this way, and I'm going to get this quality of light. But if it's pointed the opposite direction, or if it's moving too quickly or too fast, those kinds of things, if you start to trust those in the previs environment and they're wrong, it will hose you when you get on site. And so when I took the position at VER doing the previs there, one of the very first things that we did was hang each type of fixture that we rented and offered on site. And we hung it in a facility where we could figure out where front arrows were, the orientation, how it spins positively or negatively. If it's something like a clay packy BI, we learn that the damn thing sideways. All those kinds of aspects that you learn in that moment. You've got to get that figured out so that in the previs model, those things are applied to your previs model. So trustworthiness is by far the number one aspect.
Yeah, I would say definitely from like a manufacturer's perspective, and from a technical perspective. But what about other elements? Like bringing in models in proportion and making sure everything stays to scale. What about animation sequences of other elements and other things happening within the show? Things that you can kind of bring in to help automate or help in part with the programming or creative process.
Absolutely. Well, especially with like tours, VER, the name of the company is Video Equipment Rentals. And so after we figured out how to even do previs, the first thing they said is, okay, where's our video? How do we get video into previs? Now, I started working for them in 2014, and we did not have a lot of the tools that we have now, but there was one really great tool that we did figure out how to use, and that was like Converse. And it had its imperfections for sure, but the quality of rendering that came out of it, and the fact that you could integrate video and automation were very key to a lot of the tours that we serviced there. So I think developing workflows for those that let people see the entire environment, video, special effects, movement, That is the direction where we are now heading. And thanks to a lot of really great video game engineers, we're pushing into an area where anything can be visualized. And so that's why I want to kind of challenge the audience at large to start thinking about the word pre-visualization as a term that we need to throw away. And the reason for that is that why do we need the word pre as part of it? Because it's going to be happening throughout the entire design process. The fact that you're visualizing it inherently states that it is beforehand. So I'd like to start seeing us adopt visualization as a whole, because we can also detach the preconceived notions about what previs has been in a lighting field. Because you say previs, there's two different industries that use previs. You've got film and television, and they use animatics as their previs.
Yeah.
And then the lighting design side of things, MA3D, as kind of the ubiquitous method for previs. All those tools are used independently, but at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is visualize design at whatever phase of the process. And the tools that we now have at our disposal really just they break the rules. There's an entirely new playbook. That's also a good idea, Berto, but that is an interesting question about delivery. Berto is, I would call him the leading expert on in camera tracking, matching, virtual production. So there's two destinations for where we're going with visualization, and that is that yes, you're seeing the thing, but whether you're going to go for a real show and you're visualizing in advance of something that you're going to make for real, or the visualization is actually the digestible, presentable thing. And we have lots of new productions that are coming online right now, simply because we have no other way to do these things, where you are creating virtual productions. And visualization tools are now shifting and becoming good enough that you can actually look at, and they're good enough to be the presentation product.
Well, I think to also elaborate on what Berto's also speaking about is, I think virtualization in coordination with reality are becoming closer and closer together and convene. So being able to composite, these virtual elements into a realistic scene is now a reality, where we can start to do that. I don't think that we're all the way there, but we're a really good chunk of the way there, and Berto's been proving that day after day. Even with some of his work in being able to virtualize, lighting from a realistic state to a virtual state and back and forth again, and being able to manipulate those different parameters inside of a software environment. That I'm starting to find is very interesting, because those technologies, as you've seen, are being advanced extremely rapidly at this point, which I think has enabled you to actually be able to produce a lot of what you're producing now.
Absolutely. And things really start to open my eyes. I mean, whenever people have talked about previs, if you talk to anybody who's crossed paths with it but doesn't fully grasp it, the first thing that they say is, what's a video game engine? Well, every previs tool that has been generated up till now that is offered as a standalone package, yes, it's a video game engine, but it's one that somebody built from scratch, from the ground up. And I was looking at the quality of all that, and somebody would thank you, Brett. One of the things that I've seen is that the size of the team to build a lighting previs tool, you're talking about 5, 6, 10 people or whatever. But I'm looking at these giant AAA games that are producing, really beautiful visuals. And I'm saying to myself, well, why can't the visualization that we have in our lighting world have this same quality? And then I got introduced to Unreal Engine about 3 years ago. And that's where the thing really changed. Uh, there was a demonstration that had a living room and it had a cube and it was being lit and it had color changing and it was moving around the world and the character picked it up, and it was that aha moment from that one video that I said, okay, there is a future in this. If they can dynamically generate light from this cube with global illumination, we now have a
We've
viable
got
path.
we've got something we could build from.
We got something we can build from. And so instead of trying to build a completely new previs tool from scratch, which I never originally set out to do, I said, well, how can I use a tool like Unreal Engine to improve the quality of visualization and not rely on a series of technicians that I have to hire to do all of this rendering work? Why don't I ride on top of this wave and enable our team to make really great content for our industry that uses these great tools? And it's just been exponential since then. I mean, we go from that one day where they have a box and it can glow to, now we've got this demo for Unreal 5 where they've got just gobs and gobs of geometry in one scene being dynamically lit. Moore's law is dead.
Moore's law is out the window.
It's
I think that's going to be the quote of the show. Moore's law is dead.
Yeah, it's dead, because I think it's dead because it's no longer just one person doing a thing. It's a cooperative effort with many different people making exponential bounds and expansion of quality and capability. Each of those people is contributing, and then when they contribute and collaborate with each other, you have a whole nother ball of wax. And my feeling is when we all look good, we all look good. So the more we work together on this kind of thing, the future is going to be very, very bright.
I couldn't agree with you anymore. I'd actually like to ask the audience, what kind of pre-visualization or visualization, I should say, tools are you guys working with currently? It'd be great to hear what you guys are working with, and even how you're using it. So, David, did you want to bring up another sample that you had?
Yeah. I'm gonna bring up a little bit more of the evolution that started us down the path of having more and more realistic visualization. One of my good friends, Daniel Schlesinger, asked me to do some visualization for 21 Pilots. This is back in 2015, and this was the very first time that I was able to integrate video within previs at the same time. And this was done with Light Converse at the time. And I was always really impressed with the quality of beams that they had. I was really excited to see the fluidity and the movement that you could have. So I really felt like this was the expansion of my brain saying, okay, we don't just have to settle for these really sharp beams that are in MA3D, and then if you tilt them towards the camera, they completely disappear. This is the very first visualization that I've used where you could actually see light pointed at you in the camera and how it breaks up when it passes through the media. That really told me, okay, computer graphics can render this fast enough, because at some point I was doing renderings in Arnold, but it was taking me 15 minutes a frame to do. And with something like this, you have to get 60 frames per second all the time.
Yeah.
And then additionally, we've been able to do this with a lot of corporate work. I'm going to skip ahead to this other project here. This is a project that we did for George P. Johnson here at Imaginary Lights. And they asked us to do a breakdown reel afterwards of the previs to the real event experience. So that was the transition there. And I'm going to back that up again just for a second, just so I can show you what what I did with this. So we have a white ambient occlusion model here. This just shows the kind of breakdown. But then this image right here, this is our light converse model where we've got a sky HDRI. It's not actually contributing light into the scene, but this is providing a bit of a feel of what it looks like on the runway at dusk, because that's about the time that it happened. But we were able to ingest the video live onto these surfaces, so that when they played the video, they could rehearse the lighting and the video at the same time. So this was with Chris Lose was the programmer, and Scotty Dell as lighting designer, and I think Alex Grierson from George P. Johnson overseeing the lighting design. Excuse me, on that end. But going through this, again, when I talk about fidelity and trustworthiness, without making any changes to this clip whatsoever, we were able to seamlessly cut from one to the other, just like that. And I apologize, it looks like it was making me skip that slide. Here, let me just hit that again. So we were able to transition literally from the previs to the live at the same frame marker and cut it through.
Yeah, and can have a completely seamless transition. To be completely honest, I mean, it looks fantastic because you can't even see the difference or the transition from the rendering into the real show, which is quite impressive to say the very, very least.
And that's where my hope is, going with visualization as a whole, is that we can start to offer more and more elements and the noise and the dirt and the little things that make it feel believable. The earlier we can offer those in, I think people can trust it more and more and more, and get us to a place where when we are together and doing shows again, we can make them even more fantastic.
Yep, without an absolute doubt. So we had some great replies from the people, from the viewers. Ruben says all of them. Richard with MA3D, which is still quite popular. L8. Which I've actually just recently heard of from my friend Matt Mills here in Orlando.
It's Matt Hills, my friend.
Matt Hills.
Brett rocking the Unity. Good for you.
Yep.
I really want to encourage anybody who's getting into this to start wrapping your head around these new tools. I think that when we come out of this pandemic, the more you know about Unity or Unreal, you're going to be much faster to recover and get to work, because these are the new paradigms. Unreal is now being used in active production right now. There's a concert coming up in a couple of days here, Tomorrowland. They are utilizing Depends as well as Unreal. Depends for the interior and Unreal for the exterior events. Those are all. Oh, Ruben wants to see that Vista slide again. Daryl,
yeah,
Daryl, check it out, bro.
All right, here we go. This one's for you, Daryl. And that was LD Assistant, by the way. That was actually used for the CAD and pre-visualization, which was really cutting edge at the time. It was what I was doing all my renderings in, was both Vectorworks and LD Assistant, and using their pre-visualization tools at the time.
What this highlights for those of you at home is I am not a programmer, and this image right here solidifies it. If that was the console that I chose at the time, it basically meant that I did not know what I was doing.
At the time, that was
at the time. I loved the timeline aspect, and actually, I think it was ahead of its time, because a lot of those keyframe nodes are part of the Grandame timeline for like time code and stuff like that. But the speed at which we could come up with really complex chases and stuff, really excited me. But again, I really want to encourage everyone who is either not working or is trying to find the next cool thing to learn. I highly recommend you get your hands dirty and start learning Unreal, start learning a modeling application. Because there's two things happening. Number one, there are a lot of virtual productions right now, and this could be a way for us to get folks back to work. Getting our technology with visualization lined up with the schools of thought of traditional programming with connecting a console, because you could certainly make lights move in Unreal without any sort of ArtNet connectivity, but just recently Unreal has announced a plugin, and we have also been engineering, alternative ways of connecting consoles to Unreal. So in those ways, we can maybe start putting back together, some work for your traditional programmers and video content designers, because the path of the work beforehand is maybe the same, just the deliverable is very different.
Yeah, absolutely. And that actually brings me to an interesting question. When it comes down to Unity and Unreal, I have my own reservations about this, but which engine do you see fits where within our markets?
Um, that's a really hard question for me to answer, because we've made a commitment at Imaginary Labs to develop in Unreal, but we did do experimentation in both to begin with. And I will say, I think that there's a really great comparison that somebody made for me about how they differ from each other. Unreal looks gorgeous out of the box, and if you're having performance issues, you start turning switches off. Unity looks okay out of the box, and you start turning switches on until you reach the desired result. Now, Patrick may have some other thoughts on this, representing Unreal. He can speak more intelligently about this. What I would say is our personal choice to go with Unreal actually has more to do with my communication style. So I'm a very visual person, and in exploring Unreal, I found that the way that you build a blueprint matches my thinking style. And so I've been able to make blueprints of these complex paths of how. Yeah, but you're also smart. So I was able to build these node graphs in a very short amount of time in Unreal, and then my engineers can then optimize and make it more performant, and build the nitty gritty into it using C++. So from a communication standpoint, it's a lot easier for me as the architect of the software that we're working on to do this kind of big picture graphing, and then have my engineers take it to the finish line. So that's our personal choice, but I have no. I can't say that one is better than the other. They're both amazing, and it's amazing because you've got all of these engineers, scientists, and coders at your disposal as you want new things. The user group really pushes the boundaries of what is possible. So it's very much science supporting art.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I find that in the experience that I've had, there's different places for different products and different things, of course. Also coming from the product side of the industry at this moment, anyway. And we always say that there's the right tool for the right job. And for me, I personally find that UE is really kind of dominating a lot of the entertainment industry for its versatility, its flexibility, being able to kind of get things out the gates quickly, for its integration capabilities, to be able to integrate in and out. But on the flip side of that, we also find a lot of other tool sets are falling into the Unity side for more themed entertainment visualization and things where they can have their creative teams working within a Unity environment to be able to easily visualize environments and put in different physics and dynamics, especially within ride vehicles and that sort of thing. So I think the right tool.
I would agree with Berto as well that Unity has really done a great job on mobile side of things. And I find so I work out of a game development consortium here in Orlando, and we've got about a dozen other development companies here. And I would say a large majority are using Unity right now, and a lot of that had to do with the education circuit. So UCF for a while, they were teaching primarily Unity. But I've definitely seen more and more Unreal devs coming out of those schools. In fact, I think almost all of my devs, with the exception of one, are UCF graduates.
And they were all coming with a UE background.
They're all coming. Well, they're actually coming with both. I think it's the younger ones that are more 100% Unreal, whereas some of the more seasoned veterans are a blend between the two. Because I think the licensing model of Unreal only maybe in the last 3 years, Patrick, maybe you've got a better history lesson from your handbook, as to what point in time Unreal became more open source and accessible to smaller teams and whatnot. But there definitely was a huge shift in that, and I think that Unreal was very smart to open that door, and we very much appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I'm going to rewind things a little bit to earlier points that we were talking about in our conversation so far. And Brett Ferris, my friend Brett Ferris, brought up a really interesting question, asking what kind of accuracy, fidelity to final product can you offer a client contractually?
Well, what I would say is the closer that the folks over at Epic are able to mimic physics, the more I can say absolutely 100%. And the reason for that is if you take a brute force Monte Carlo rendering such as Arnold, you can render anything, and you will look at that image and say that looks real. And the reason it's able to do that is because you can mathematically calculate any aspect of any material and any photon. You can calculate those in a computer. It follows the laws of physics. What game engines have to do, because they don't have the benefit of running that kind of calculation that fast, is there's all these cheats and hacks and algorithms that try to either guess what a pixel color should be, or have to come up with some approximation, right? But the more the scientists at these institutions are able to optimize that math, and the faster the silicon gets that we're running that on to performing that in real time, there's absolutely no reason why we won't be able to offer complete realism at 60 frames per second in a believable way.
Yeah, I think
we're a ways away from that. I would say that we're making big jumps. What's happening now is we're starting to offer more and more disciplines, more and more elements and aspects. We're able to offer those in an environment and not worry about the frame cost as much. So that I would say is the challenge that I ask any incoming job that we have is my first question is, what do you want to visualize? It's not, oh, okay, send me the plot.
Yeah,
that's the questions that I used to ask. Send me the plot. I'll look at the fixture. That is an element. That is definitely important. But now it's, well, what do you want to see? What needs to be in your presentation? What needs to be in your visualization? What wants to be in your production? And then we go through the decision of, is this something that we're the best at, or do we want to be working with somebody else? For example, our company, is really good at these technical elements of the video panels, the lighting fixtures, the special effects. But we know that we're not so strong in like the human performance capture side of things. So in those instances, it's always important for us to be working with somebody who understands those things, who understands end display and how you put video on, a cube, and how you get a person on a green screen, how you track a camera with Stipe or something like that. Those are things that really enhance the environment, but we're getting to an area where we're starting to ask those questions of what do you want to see?
Yeah, and I think that's always a really tricky part too, is being able to answer those questions, like what is too much visualization? Where are your limits?
there's a diminishing level return on expense, obviously, and nobody is going to spend millions and millions of dollars for a simulation that isn't the end product. I will say that as more and more people are digesting these medias, like the Tomorrowland festival that's happening this weekend, they're gonna keep pushing that. The envelope's going to keep pushing into more and more and more things because they want it to be engaging. They want it to look like what they're used to seeing. So I guess what is going to be happening in the very near future is that I think community is going to play a huge role in this as far as asset and world building. Those of you who have seen the movie Ready Player One will fully understand that there will certainly be the capability of a world in the future where everybody controls their own destiny and they affect each other in their experience. And what I think is happening right now with the game Fortnite is, I have my feelings on where it's ultimately going. I feel like they are training people how to build things in a world that they can then experience together. And so it's the early building blocks of people doing the world building. So the communities do the world building rather than Epic hiring 10,000 artists to make the world.
I couldn't agree with you anymore. I've had a lot of different conversations over the past weeks about this specific topic. A lot around virtual production, a lot around these virtual environments and incorporating events like these different concerts into platforms like Fortnite. And Facebook is also, Berto actually made me aware that Facebook is also working on a virtual world project as well, to kind of bring social media, I guess, to its next level and its next phase, and making it more realistic, I guess, but placing us more into virtual environments that are much closer to reality than they are virtual in the sense of the word. So it's a really interesting transition and a really interesting time to be kind of at the forefront of working inside of these industries and these technologies to see where it's going to evolve. Personally, I'm actually pretty excited to see where we're going to go. And, it always takes these large leaps to kind of get to that next level. But once you're there, everything really starts to, jive and flow, and people start to adopt these different workflows and different ways of working, and new career path, virtual real estate agent. Man, it really
no. Don't change career, Scott. Don't please keep doing what you're doing. And I love those mixes. More tunes for me to work to. Scott Riley here, by the way, an amazing DJ. Not in the DJ that's like they'd be homeless without a girlfriend kind of thing, but Scott is actually a really great musician, and I cannot wait to actually sit down with him and listen to him mix live and drink an old fashioned.
I hear he makes a hell of an old fashioned.
He does. At least the pictures look like he does. I have yet to actually sit down with him and have one. But Jeffrey, you're a Star Trek fan, yes?
Yep.
Okay, so Star Trek is what's that? I think you have your umbrella of nerddom, and
yes.
you
I actually have a nerddom shirt on right now. You can't really see it very clearly, but it's the Haunted Mansion.
Oh, sweet.
Haunted Mansion that are in my shirt.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, so Star Trek, despite being absolute science fiction, is actually, the funny thing is, a great predictor of future technology. So let's run a quick little checklist here. So we've got tricorders, which are our cell phones. So that's tricorder, yep. Right? Okay.
Done.
We have doors that slide open, right? We got that. We now have holodecks.
We do.
And I'm sure that Berto thinks that every time he steps onto one of these XR stages, this is. I'm surprised he doesn't have a test pattern with yellow grid. It's Yeah, so we are now experiencing this right now. We're experiencing this visualization, virtualization paradigm change. Uh, the transporter, scary, 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 scary
It's a matter
stuff.
of time,
Scary,
Scott.
scary, scary, scary stuff. But we are entering into brave new territory, and I think that we're embracing these computer generated technologies for imagery. It's real time rendered, not real time generated. It still takes artists and everybody listening right now, if they want to follow this wave. Now's a good time to start embracing these technologies and get comfortable with it because it's not going away.
No, if anything, it's going to become more and more and more. I mean, we're seeing companies and people that are going out and scanning cities now. We're
Yep.
going to have full 3D models of virtually everything and anything you can possibly think of at your disposal. I mean, the 3D model libraries have just grown so exponentially over the course of the last 10 years. It's unbelievable what is available now. I mean, I remember, in the days of SketchUp and when it was part of Google, and just the amount of work that they built and they put into expanding their model libraries to be accessible by anybody, and that's becoming more and more and more. I mean, even Berto and my friend Brandon that I had on the show recently, we're talking a lot about just the plugins that are available that are making and streamlining people's workflows just so incredibly, and it's becoming a lot more of a complete collaborative, I guess, a collaborative market and a collaborative environment where so many people can now contribute to helping workflows and helping the way that people do things. And you're seeing all these different tools that are being built by, either independent coders or little independent studios that are just building these unbelievable plugins to help move these workflows into where they are now and expedite the way that we do things.
Absolutely. What you gonna show off there, Berto?
He's got a YouTube link for all to look at.
Oh boy, we'll
I
check that
wanted
out after the show.
to use the segue. Patrick, thanks for watching the show. And for those of you watching and don't know Patrick, well, you should join me next week because Patrick Wumbold is going to be my guest here from Epic on the show. And we're going to take the show and continue on moving forward. But I wanted to take this time to also thank David for coming on the show with me today and sharing some great insights and great information, and also publicly embarrassing me for my work from like decades ago.
I love
But
you,
if you
Jeffrey.
But if you want to reach David and get to know some of his works more, please check him out at imaginarylabs.com. Also,
Imaginary Dash, and that will be going live tomorrow. So you're going to see a great big countdown on there. We are working as hard as we can to get that up and running to share some of the research of what we've been doing under the hood with Unreal Engine. And thank you, Craig. We've really gone through an exploration, with finding a new way to do previs and new tools for that, and so we can't wait to start showing you what we've been working on the last year and a half now. We're ready to start to get this cat out of the bag and start showing you more of what's possible in the future.
So, David, speaking of that, do you have anything in your deck that you wanted to show that you've got going on today?
Yeah, so you may or may not have viewed this video on Facebook, so I'm going to go ahead and share it with you now. This is our most recent test of the work that we've done inside of Epic Games Unreal Engine. And every ounce of this was created in-house. The code was all constructed in-house, and we are building an asset library of lighting fixtures that are going to hopefully really change the paradigm. And actually, this is from a static camera. I have a final presentation that's on YouTube right now. We'll post the link. But this is from the static view, so you can see that it's from the front of house perspective. So what we currently support is, zoom, color changing, gobos, stacked and stacked gobos on top of each other. We've got animation wheels. We've got framing shutters. So we just really the full gamut of what you would expect to see in a lighting fixture. We're trying to replicate those as precisely as we possibly can within Unreal Engine, and they've done a really great job at supporting us. We've been asking questions every now and then of how to go about building certain aspects, and they've really just been a fantastic resource for support.
And it looks amazing. Actually, it looks phenomenal. I've commented you a million times on the work that you've been doing, and I've sat in your studio a number of times to see how the progress has come along, and it's just been leaps and bounds of unbelievably hard work that you've done over the course of the last couple of years that you've been working on this. So it's been really cool to see this whole thing progress, and where you were to where you have come to has been just incredible.
Jeffrey, how could I post a link?
Which one are you looking for? Is it
the second video that's on YouTube with the statue, what we just saw? I just want to make that available for folks.
Type it into post a comment in the bottom of the comments area. So there's a post a comment area that will say for all. You could post a comment directly in there. Did you find it?
I did not. There is no actual window. There's just a lot of comments, and I could
just drop it in the private chat area, and then we'll move it over.
I got it there.
Oh, I think it's in there now. Yeah. So we'll post that. So Sergio, we're going to post that for you, so that you'll have access to it. David, you also have a public link available for your YouTube channel as well, don't you?
That's correct. I mean, that is part of that. Let me find the actual link. I'm logged in. Let's see.
We can actually share that link as well as a general comment after the post or after the stream is done as well. One of the things I did want to ask you about is I know that you've been working predominantly within the lighting portion of the visualization, but what about projection visualization within your product or within your focus? Are you looking at doing some work there as well, and maybe projection studies or visualization?
Our goal with our entire software package that we're building, so we have a series of tools that are for use inside of Unreal Engine itself, but we do acknowledge that for some that might be a little bit of a steep learning curve. So we are going to be building a standalone application that is going to be working seamlessly with industry standard tools such as Vectorworks, AutoCAD, Cinema 4D, and whatnot. And what our tool is going to be able to do is replicate any piece of technology that you would use in a show. So for that, any projector, any video surface, we'll have all the options in place for that, for people to be able to set up a virtual representation of any physical piece of gear that you would use on a show. So if projection studies is something that you would want to achieve, instead of having to physically set up anything in the real world, this is a laboratory for people to set up whatever they want without having to worry about the manual labor or cost of owning any particular gear.
Cool. That sounds fantastic. Well, I think we're just about running out of time, but David, I just wanted to thank you again so much for coming on the show with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on board, and a very, very happy belated birthday again.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
From your birthday being yesterday?
Yesterday. 39.
39 years young. And for all the viewers, thank you guys so much again for all of your support. Thanks for watching week after week. It's been a real pleasure kind of hosting this show. I had no idea it was going to become what it is, but so far onwards and upwards. And again, tune in next week. Check out Patrick, who's been on the show. We're going to dive a lot deeper into Unreal Engine and into what Unreal is capable of today, and some insights as to what it might be doing in the future as well. And as I say every single week to you all, thanks for staying and stay ahead of the curve. Thanks, David.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone.